Hello, and welcome back to The Foundation Presents. My name is Mike Schramm. I'm your host and a member of the board of the Foundation for West Hartford Public Schools, a private nonprofit group dedicated to funding grants in the West Hartford school system that expand on the curriculum that's already in the schools. Today, we'll hear from two elementary school teachers about authors they brought in to teach their kids about their books. And now I'd like to welcome Angela Giliberto, Library Media Specialist at Smith STEM. Angela, can you tell me a little bit about your grant?
Absolutely. Our grant was part of the 20th anniversary grant, and we got an author in residence. We had award-winning author Elise Broach come and visit the school, and she was able to meet with all of the children at school. She has written books that are picture books. She's also written books for 2-3, and she's written books for the 4-5. So I thought it was perfect because it's really, she could really target all of the grade levels. So she came and she did 4 presentations, one for our littlest pre-K, then one for kindergarten and first grade that showcased picture books and how to come up with ideas for picture books. And then she wrote an award-winning series that the children at 2-3 love, the Marvin and James. My students can't get enough of this. There are 3 books in the series and a 4th one coming out. And then my 4-5, she met with my 4-5 students, and Masterpiece was the book that they studied. We did an author study along with it, and students throughout the school, we were able to gift teachers, each one of the classes, a gift of a book. So each teacher in school read the book to her, and we did read to the class, and we did an author study. So when she came, the kids were even more excited because they knew all of the material, and she could really target each grade level and what was appropriate to them. So I was really excited to have her, because a lot of times authors only write young adult books or picture books, and she writes all 3 types of books. And so it was great to have her, really, and she was unbelievably inspiring to the children there.
Well, it's great to see these books. I'll hold them up for the camera just so you can see even the thickness of them. It's pretty clear that some are meant for older kids and some are meant for younger kids. And then, I imagine it's a rarity, even larger print books like that. It's nice that someone could come in who could speak to all the students. Did she come in one day?
She did. She did come in one day. We had her, she arrived right before the start of school, and I had it set up where the classes came as a group. So K1 came because they focused on picture books, and then she met with 2-3, which focused on early chapter books, and then she met with 4-5, and their presentation was geared for each one. And then she took our littlest guys, our pre-K, for a shorter time to meet with them and to discuss picture books with them. And so she stayed with us the entire day, and each presentation was over an hour. And so she shared all of her ideas of how she made books and where she got the ideas. And the kids were fascinated because she said the idea for her first picture book that she got, this one, was a story that she wrote in kindergarten, and she showed the children the story that her mother had kept the entire time. And so the kids were so inspired by that, by the fact that, wow, I'm in kindergarten, or I was just there.
I'm sure. I mean, how often does an author come to a school and say, when I was your age, it planted the seeds for this book that you're reading right now? I mean, I'm sure that helps the kids relate to the author so much more.
Absolutely. They had already had knowledge about her, but then having that personal connection were really reinforcing reading and how that personal connection to reading. So to bring the author in and for them to see a real author was just unbelievable for a lot of the kids, and say, hey, I too can be a real author. She said that her story came from what we read. And so it was very exciting for them, and they really came out of that truly inspired to read and to write. And so it was great for all the kids to see this, no matter, our youngest pre-K all the way to our 5th graders, to say, hey, this is doable. This is something that, hey, I love to write too. Do you know that? Maybe this idea that I have can turn into a book someday. So it was very exciting for them.
And what a wonderful way for the students to be able to connect to the material too. All these kids, I'm sure, have grown up with screens in front of them their whole lives, and so the idea of a paper book might seem somewhat quaint to some of them. But it's nice, I'm sure, that someone could come in and really speak to what it's like to be an author. I'm curious what she spoke about with the students.
Sure. She came in and she spoke to them about how she comes up with ideas. And it was great because that's how our teachers teach them. What do you do to come up with ideas? And so she connected to them by asking them, how do they come up with their ideas? And so she generated a list with them, and then she showed how she comes up with ideas, and they matched. And it was great because the kids were like, wait, that's how we do it too. So it was it really brought it to another level for the kids, because they really were able to make that connection and to say, hey, this is a real thing. This is a real author, and she's not this person on this pedestal. She's a person that was just like us, that loved to read books, that loves to write, and was able to create these great stories that we now love. So it was pretty, they really were on the edge of their seats. At the very end, when she took questions, we had to stop the kids and say, I'm sorry, we're out of time. But it was a great experience. All the kids kept coming up to me after and in the days that followed and said, that was fantastic. Maybe I too can be an author someday. And I was like, you can. Absolutely, you can too be an author. And I said, actually, you are an author every single day. When you're working in class, you're already doing that. So I said, hold on to those stories, because one day I said, I want to see that story. I want you to come back and show me that book that you create. So it was pretty exciting for us. It really was something we probably would never be able to get just because of the cost factor. So it was fantastic because it really was able to impact everyone at school, and it was just a wonderful experience for the school.
Now let's talk about the 20th anniversary grant we mentioned, and that was an initiative of the foundation where
Correct.
monies were distributed to all 17 schools in the school district, to the principals to use at their discretion for a grant. So how did you work with your principal to have this be the grant from that?
So my principal came to me and said, we had this grant, and we have been working on reading initiatives. So myself, my curriculum specialist, Ruth Leopold, and our reading specialist, Eileen Carlson, had gotten a grant the year before from the foundation called We're Talking Books. And we got lots of books for the classrooms to get children really involved in book clubs and reading books. And so my principal came to me and said, I love the work that you guys did last year with the grant and really pushing reading and reading enjoyment for the children. We have this grant. What are your thoughts on continuing that work? What are you thinking? And so I was super excited when she said that to us. I was like, I've got an idea, and what are your thoughts on this? And she was great. She was gung ho. She's like, absolutely, let me know. And so it worked out beautifully because it really followed through. We've been focusing on reading beliefs and getting children reading, and that was just a logical connection for them.
So tell me how this fits in with the overall curriculum of the school.
So we have focused on our ELA and writing. So all the children at different.
And can I stop you there?
Sure.
Can you explain what ELA is?
Sorry, English Language Arts.
Okay.
So all the children have English Language Arts, and part of their English Language Arts and my support of them is getting children to read different genres. And so we do lots of narrative writing with them and story writing. And the children also read all types of genres. So we've been focusing on multiple genres. And so children really do like fiction and picture books. And so we try and encourage, children to come into the library and get books. And this was just a logical segue into that because the children were reading that. I mean, this is a hot book in our library. You cannot keep it on the shelves because the children love the story. And so they're using these ideas in their writing in the curriculum, and the curriculum is helping them to understand the characters and the setting and the concepts that are in this book. Our 4th and 5th graders do mystery writing, so this is a mystery book. So it was a great connection. So what they're learning in class, they were seeing in this book. So it was a really good, at school we do this connection. So you could see the children throughout the presentation. They were all excited. They kept saying, I can connect to that. It's because the teachers in our school are doing an amazing job, presenting the information to them, and they could connect to the author and to the books. So our curriculum really comes to life because the children are using real life skills, every day in their reading and their writing.
I think that's so important, and especially Smith STEM School. There's such a push now on STEM, which I think that parents can sometimes think, sacrifice a bit of the arts, and clearly that's not the case here. This is really a creative expression, and I'm sure that the kids really respond to that. And to see an author in real life, something they can aspire to is so important at that early age because we want to inspire kids in the school system.
Absolutely. It really, when we have programs like this, it really makes learning even more meaningful. They're learning these concepts, they're learning these skills, but to be able to see someone who's doing that in real life as their job, as their passion to do that, it really brings it home to them, and it makes it real for them. And that was really the purpose, to inspire them to say, this is what we're doing every day, and look what can come from this. So it was great to have her. And the kids every day are working on this in their classrooms, and they can figure out how to apply it, or they can see someone applying it and really aspire to do that as well.
We're now shifting tracks here a little bit. Was this the first time that you worked with the foundation?
Personally, no. As I had mentioned earlier, I had gotten a grant last year. I actually got 3 grants. I was part of 3 different grants last year.
Okay.
I love
it's a good year.
I love yes, it was a great year actually. That doesn't always happen, but it does actually quite a bit. I've been in the district a long time, and the foundation has been unbelievable. To me personally, I've gotten lots of grants that have really benefited my students and enriched my students, and I can't say enough about the foundation because it really does provide students with programs that we would not be able to do on a daily, even yearly basis without the foundation. So, and the process is such an easy process. They do such a great job giving suggestions about the grant writing, and people come to talk to us. We have a liaison from the school, so if there are any questions, and the application process is so streamlined now that it's not difficult, and it's just such a great experience. I think the foundation is truly unbelievable, and especially this year, just awarding that money to all the schools without any parameters. Say, hey, what does your school need? That was truly unbelievable to get that that message from my principal and say, hey, what do you think? I'm like, I'm so excited. I have some great ideas about to build on what we are doing as a school and really using the foundation to help us to achieve our goals. So it's a great program. So
well, this type of grant is the exact reason why the foundation exists and does the work that it does. And being a 13-year product of the West Hartford Public School System myself, I've been on the student end of being inspired by authors coming in or different programming that teachers have been able to put on that expands upon the curriculum, where in other towns it's just not the case. And we're fortunate enough to have a community that wants to support the public school system, especially now when public education dollars are under more threat than they've been in a very long time, and the financial stability of the state is a bit murkier than it's been in the past.
Correct.
And for as long as the foundation is around, we're going to continue to make sure that this type of programming is available, sponsored by great educators like yourself, and carried out for the students. So if there's anything else you'd like to say.
I just wanted to say thank you, because I really cannot tell you how much it really does impact our students. We really work to think about great ideas, and then the foundation really helps us to make those ideas really come into fruition. And so thank you to the foundation, and I'm glad that you're continuing to do what you're doing.
Well, Angela, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And now I'd like to welcome Jessica Johnson, a first grade teacher at Norfolk. Jessica, can you tell me a little bit about your grant?
Sure. So I actually applied for a grant a few years in a row and ended up getting a grant for an African artist in residence. Wande Pay came to our school, and he was fabulous. He came as an African musician, storyteller, artist, and he spent a week with our first graders. Each year he came, and he would spend an hour in every classroom and rotate through and teach a different topic area each time he visited. So it was fabulous.
So what subjects would he focus on?
He actually did a lot with, so he's an artist and author by trade. He's created some books, and so he would bring in his books and talk about the process of being an author.
Show 'em off for the camera.
Talk about the process of writing and getting the kids engaged in writing and being able to create books of their own. A lot of them stemmed from folk tales that he had from Liberia, where he grew up, and so he would share a little bit about the cultural diversity between where he was from and obviously where our students were from. Mm-hmm. And then one day we'd usually focus on music, and he would bring in all of his African drums, and he would bring in drums and equipment enough for every single student to play. And then another one of the lessons, he would do African storytelling through stick figure drawing. And so he would actually teach the kids how you could do almost like an old school hieroglyphics of how you could actually show the art and how people told stories in Africa a long time ago. He would also do African mask making as a piece of his time with the students, so they would all see different African masks, and then we would work together to create them in the classroom. And so the biggest piece, he really touched on so much of our curriculum through the week that he was there. The kids really had an opportunity to connect him and his expertise and his cultural diversity to everything that we were doing in the classroom. So.
And so this sounds a little different from other author in residence grants that we've done. It sounds like he's more like a cultural ambassador almost.
Exactly, and it was fabulous because the kids got a totally different perspective and where his writing was stemming from. And although similar to other artists in residence, it was almost because he had the pieces that brought the music in, and he had the pieces that brought the mask making and the art. It was almost like a culmination of all subject areas, and it wasn't just the book writing. His storytelling was amazing. Anyone who'd come into the room to listen to him, found themselves kind of drawn right into his stories. We would always have a parent day on the last day. The few times that we had him come for his grant, the last day was a parent day, and parents got to come in and hear a little snippet of each thing that he did. And he really turned the lessons into, the kids were so engaged that it really felt like they were in a different experience. They would get to play instruments every single day. They would get to rotate through all of the different instruments and really just get an understanding of something that's different from what they hear and see every day in school.
Yeah, it sounds like he's almost a cultural ambassador of sorts, and so it seems like he obviously touches on a lot of different subject matters. So how does that all fit in with the curriculum that you're working with?
Well, and that's the nice part, is that really every part of the curriculum, because he had so much to offer, it was something where, you know, we were doing studies and comparing and contrasting ourselves with other cultures. Perfect fit. You know, we were doing studies of different things, creating with music and storytelling. Perfect fit. I mean, a lot of the stories that we were writing, we talked about how storytellers can influence us so much, and writing stories about their culture and writing stories about where they're from. And so it seemed like as we were writing the grants, every single time there was something that came up that he offered, it was a very easy connection into what the kids could benefit from. And the nice piece is that it was teaching things that were different from what we would typically teach. And it's like you say, as a cultural ambassador, he's really giving us an experience and giving our students an experience that likely they would not have without, you know, a grant writing process.
So he's come in multiple years consecutively, as you mentioned. Can you speak a little bit to sort of his impact on the school as a whole, like for kids who've already gone through the grant and then see him again?
It's been fabulous. The kids made such a great connection with him, and, you know, they'd walk down the hall and call him one day, and, you know, they'd talk about the drumming and ask him how he's doing. And we got to a point where every single student in the school had, I believe it was 5 or 6 years that he had been at the school, and every single student in every single grade level knew who he was. So when they'd hear the African drumming down in the first grade hallway, they would always know he was there. And they'd see him walk through the halls. They'd offer to carry him stuff, you know, down for him, tell him how much they enjoyed his experience. They had the opportunity to order books from him when he visited. And it really made, even though it was a grant that each year only impacted the first grade students, it really impacted everyone. We did have him come for a parent piece the Friday of the week that he visited. And then we also had him back actually as an evening storyteller under the stars. Our school did a program, Reading Under the Stars, and it was a nighttime event, about 7 o'clock. People brought blankets and things, and they had him do storytelling for the whole entire school. And so he did, you know, work a lot with just the first graders in the residence grant, but he also really had a huge impact on the whole school.
That is really interesting, actually. I'm not sure that many artists in residence I've met over the years have had that kind of an effect on the whole school community. So can you talk a bit about the parents and how they received Wande and the cultural message overall?
It was fabulous, and I think the best piece is that they got a chance to see it. So as you know, we tried to invite the grant funders, or the people who are giving the funds to our organizations, but to invite the parents gives that extra kick of understanding of, like, what is this really about? You know, what are we writing grants for, or what are their children receiving as a result of the grants getting funded? And the parents have been so positive. And there was one year where we only received a partial grant, and the parents helped fund the other part of the grant. And so it spoke to the importance of it as you start to see the parents and the community rallying around a great opportunity for their children. So they received it very, very well. They loved, and when they came in to visit on the parent day, they would always ask questions. They would always, you know, get more stories, and they heard from their children every single day about the positive impacts. And so it really was very well received in the community.
You know, that's really telling that parents stepped in and filled that gap for that one year where the grant wasn't funded by the foundation. Can you speak a little bit about the value of someone like Wande as a cultural ambassador and how it relates to the curriculum overall?
It's, for me, there's no better experience with learning than to be immersed in it. And so it seemed like when he was there, it was no longer just a lesson about writing or becoming an author. It was truly an experience about becoming an author and a writer. And if we were talking about, I can tell any story, but when you listen to somebody else tell a story, for the kids, it's just to have me step back and me be a learner too, and have them see their teacher as somebody that doesn't know everything about creating the things that they're learning about was a really cool experience too. And we get to learn a lot as professionals from other professionals. And so there's a really great, neat connection that happens when you have somebody in who can really share something new and exciting. There's a different level of excitement with the kids, and I think it just overall it fuels everyone's energy.
Well, that's, I think, a really great message for the kids to receive, that you, as their educator, are still learning. I remember when I was in first grade, I thought my first grade teacher slept at the school, sort of knew everything there was to know.
Yep.
And so for them to see you modeling that kind of behavior, and then to see their parents modeling that same type of behavior when they come in for family events or for the Reading Under the Stars, I'm sure that's really impactful for them. Did you experience any of that?
Such a positive impact. And I mean, really just the excitement that the kids put into, if they had to be absent, I mean, I literally remember a family member saying, my child is out today, and they're devastated because they don't want to miss what you're doing in school today. And so it was something we talked at length about, and the kids were really, every single day that they were engaged in his time with us, it was very, very precious. And so,
I think too that we should mention that it's important in today's society that young kids be exposed to different cultures as a good thing, and as building upon whatever sort of culture they identify with, and as something
Absolutely.
being different and worth learning about, and maybe some of those practices worth mimicking themselves, because we live in an ever more interconnected world, and the odds that these kids are going to be able to go through their lives without interacting with people who come from the culture that Juan Day is educating them on is just so slim. I think that's important for us to touch on.
Huge. And I hope in the future that I can get him back for more grants and in different lights, and connecting to our curriculum in different ways. As our curriculum changes, our needs change. And as we have different things that we need to, meet expectations for, he's just somebody who I can see meeting those expectations in many different ways.
Now, is this grant the only way that you've interacted with the foundation?
No, I've also I've received multiple grants. I received a grant for a reading program for children. I actually received a grant this year for a science grant, but I haven't implemented it yet, which is why I'm not speaking to that one just yet. And we also did a writing grant that I received, and so we've had a lot of support from the foundation. Some really great connections coming out to the schools and helping teachers formulate ideas and come up with different ideas that would be good to implement in the classrooms. And so they've been great and very, very supportive of helping us kind of get the ball rolling and giving us some ideas of what might really work or how it could impact children in different ways to make the best opportunity happen.
Now, we're running a little short on time here, but if there was one thing that you could say to the foundation's donors, what would it be?
I mean, a huge thank you. Thank you not only for an educator's perspective, but for our students. When you can see your students shine and be excited about something that is something that you're already teaching during the day, but they're getting in a totally different way or a totally different light, or to be able to provide experience for all children. Some children can experience these things outside of the school and in their home environments, and some can't. So the West Hartford Foundation is really giving a level playing field to all of our students in West Hartford to give them experiences that some of them may never have, but that all of them can experience together. So,
well, Jessica, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your grant.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Well, folks, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and if you'd like to learn more about any of these grants or the foundation in general, please visit fwhps.org.